All right, well, we're going to bring up the next speaker. So I'm going to love this one. This one's going to smell really good. So he's internationally recognized essential oil and botanical skincare consultant. He's an educator and an author. So we are pleased to bring Jimm up here so he can tell us about his topic today, which is holistic essential oils. You cannot move right here. By warning, so we can get you on camera, so we can put that on. We can put that online.
I don't do well standing still. But for you guys, yeah, no problem. How was lunch? Good. How does it smell? Everyone went, yeah, and that's how it smells. Two people go. You don't think about that much, do you? How does it smell? From now on, every day, every moment, think about how it smells. Every day, every moment, pay attention, because what happens in your nose goes to your brain, and it completely and totally affects how you are going to behave at that time. This is actually a therapy that I tie into my essential oil therapy, is understanding how to direct the olfactory system instead of letting things be random. Oh, let me see, how do we work this? Not that way, not that way, that way. I'm sure one of these buttons will do it, right? That one? No. Okay, voodoo. Who knows how to make this work? It might not be on, maybe it's off. Hey, look, it's me. I think, there was only, me and Sean had this screen because Denise sent us these things. I think Denise was concerned about some of us remembering who we are. I know, this is me. I got it. And I do all those things. I've been doing this for 30 years, by the way, essential oils, aromatherapy. And I've done it in almost every way possible. The only things I haven't done in the aromatherapy world are I haven't distilled oils or extracted, any of the plant-based extracts. And is that pretty much it? I've been a formulator. I've designed skincare formulas. I taught at Boston University, if you guys know where that is. I taught at aesthetic schools. That was actually where I learned a lot of what I was teaching. It's kind of cool when you teach, you also learn yourself. So every aspect of this. Now, who here uses essential oils? Okay. I'm gonna stretch things maybe a little bit. Maybe you guys are familiar with some of the things I'm going to be teaching, because I'm not really getting into anything too new. But I have developed some new systems, which is what the holistic essential oil triad is all about. Because even though I've been doing this for a long time, and there's associations and professional aromatherapists out there, I find everyone to be really limited, or they get into categories, they get into their lane, and that's what they do with essential oils. And there's just so much more that can always be done when you're working with essential oils. So with skincare, which I love to work with skincare. This is what I was talking about over at the booth, so some of you guys may have heard me say this already. When you are working with skin is so influenced by emotion, right? So acneic skin, you have inflammation, you have microorganisms that you have to deal with, you want to detoxify the skin. But what else would cause breakouts in acneic skin? Food definitely do. Stress. Any massage therapists here? A couple of massage therapists. So when you're working on tense neck or back, inflammation, working on the nervous system, you want to release the tension. You're doing most of the manipulation, but essential oils can do all that. Well, what are the causes of that generally? Stress. unless somebody, out in construction does something weird and twists their back. But stress is one of the main issues. Now, what do you have in skincare that is you use for stress? Does that mean nothing? Because nobody said anything? Now we're rocking. There we go. So, in skincare, what I found is there's a few different levels of what I need to get to my chart, but I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent because I know I'm going to mention this. There are several different layers to doing skincare, especially when it's plant-based skincare. Anyone familiar with biophilia? I am. Biophilia is our genetic coding to be in nature, and they talk about this a lot in forest bathing. Forest bathing started in Japan, where they bring stressed out people from Tokyo into the forest to hang out for a while, and it reduced stress, anxiety, lowered the suicide rate, and it also boosts the immune system. So what you're doing when you're in the forest is you're actually smelling the essential oils that the trees are giving you for free with no charge. It's great. Biophilia is a really cool thing to understand because nature heals. Nature reduces stress. And so when you're using essential oils, it's a plant-based ingredient, it's nature, and so the response is going to trigger that function in your body that's a genetic coding that nature heals. So just using essential oils because they're natural, it's going to have an emotional effect. I'm going to leave some of these things alone. I know I'm going to talk. Oh wait, let me go back to this. So, holistic, right? So this is the part that everyone knows about. Essential oils are holistic. You inhale them, and it's generally it's stress and emotions that you think about. But it's much bigger than that. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Topical. One of the things that skin needs is anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and cell regeneration. Essential oils do all three. And topical and olfactory, this is where when you're doing any application of essential oils, you're working energetically. So it was cool that she mentioned, did you say chakras? Because that was one of the things, crystals and all the other things. But energy medicine and energy and frequency and all these things are things that we also need to pay attention to. That gets used a lot in aromatherapy and in essential oils. They talk about the energetic properties and chakras. I did a formulation for a chakra practice that the spa was doing in Bellevue. And when I went in for the training, because you read all this stuff. If you ever read about essential oils and chakras, you'll see essential oils listed for this one and that one and the other one. And as I was doing the training, and sometimes I'll think out loud, I said, we're just making this stuff up. Because we're just making this stuff up. But that doesn't mean that we're just making this stuff up and it doesn't work. It means that we don't really know anything exact about how essential oils work on an energetic level. And this is one of the cool things about it because experience and experimenting with essential oils is one of the most fun things you could possibly do. That's why I kind of get frustrated by all this information. Some of these schools that are out there, they'll have you do, I don't know how many years of studying essential oils. I think a good essential oil course is a weekend, and then play for a while, and then go back and learn more, and then play for a while. And everything you learn, and I taught this at Bastyr, right? So at Bastyr University, and it's a very accredited, proper university. And I'm saying, okay, I'm going to teach you all this stuff, and I want you to learn it, and I want you to learn it, and I want you to absorb it, and then I want you to forget it. And the reason I want people to forget it is because I want them to get out of their own way. Sometimes education limits us to what we can do. So the best way I teach is to get you to learn details as deeply as you can, and then get away from it and experiment and see what those details mean in a real-world application. So that's where I started coming up with this. Because, like I said, people get into their lane. So when you think about smelling essential oils, it's usually emotion. It makes you feel good. Isn't that nice? And they do. They make you feel good. It's an olfactory effect. And then we have pharmacology. Now, throwing the word pharmacology in there, that's, this comes from pharmaceutical industry when you talk about pharmacology. But what I'm referring to is the actual molecular, cellular communication that goes on when you're using essential oils. And I'll explain that a little deeper as we get into this. And then the metaphysical is my I don't know category. You know, what does metaphysical mean? It's not something we can document very easily. There are some things, you know, when you get into traditional Chinese medicine and you have qi and meridians, these things are better understood than they have been, you know, over the last 25 years or so. The research that they're doing, there's some validity to it. And so when you understand, the more you understand, the more you can work with. But when you don't understand it, you can work with it anyway because you got to be creative. And so in my metaphysical category, I am talking about chakras, and I'm talking about chi flow and marmas and Ayurvedic and all these other things because they matter and they count. So we need to understand at least a little bit about this stuff. So this is what I did, holistic essential oil triad. Everything I just mentioned, I was looking at this and I go, well, every time you use an oil, there's an olfactory effect, and there's a pharmacological effect, and there's a metaphysical effect. And they're not separate. They're all happening simultaneously. And so the more you understand this, the more you know your oils, the more you can work within this triad. Now, like I said, I'm not teaching anything new here. I'm not telling you anything new. We already know when we always called it holistic. These are the holistic properties of essential oils. They work emotionally, they work physically, and they work energetically or metaphysically. And so we've already known that. But it was, again, always separate. So I wanted to kind of put it together in a different way. Now, one of the things, well, let me show you my chart. Do I need to tell you anything there? Yeah, let me do tell you this. Scent, memory, emotion. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Because this is oh so important. You guys ever have, you smell something and a little video goes off in your head? Right? That's how powerful scent, memory, emotion is. I had a woman who every time rose oil went around the room, she left. And what that means is that it's not that rose oil isn't good and she doesn't like the smell. It means that she has a memory association. Actually, let me rephrase that, because it wasn't a memory, specific memory. It was an emotional memory that triggered anxiety for whatever reason, right? And so when you're working with essential oils, or actually anything that has an odor, and you see people kind of respond in a body language negative way, there's a memory, emotion memory bond that you want to pay attention to there. Now, like I said earlier, this is therapy. When you know how to work with memory and emotion, it becomes part of your therapeutic practice. This is killer for retail, by the way. And repeat customers, you send them home with especially if it's a signature fragrance of your own, and you send that home and they've had an incredible experience. Every time they spray or put that stuff on, they're going to be thinking about you and they're going to know. They can't wait to get back to you because you've triggered and placed a positive memory emotion. So this is powerful therapy. Now when you layer, if you notice I'm not talking about essential oils, I'm talking about the concept of essential oils, because this is a good place to start, better than what to do with lavender or what to do with peppermint. If you have 5 essential oils, I don't care what they are, you can probably do almost everything with them. A little guesswork going on there. It doesn't always work. Anyway, so olfactory, we're thinking the olfactory system is emotion, but the olfactory system is also a physical response. When you smell, you're going through its olfactory nerves. The molecule binds with the nerve, sends a signal to what's called the limbic system. The limbic system is like a little messenger system, and it's signaling to the body how to respond to that oil that you just smelled, or whatever it was you just smelled. One of the main ways I like to use this in the olfactory limbic response is lowering the fight or flight response. Fight or flight's not really good for your skin, is it? Are you hearing all these terms that are out there? There's neuroscience, neurocosmetics, vagus nerve. If you guys hear about vagus nerve, vagus nerve is what you're triggering when you're getting into what's called rest and digest, and so you want to be in that calm state. And it doesn't mean you're going to be sedated. We're not talking, when we talk about calm states, it's not about, it's just about being, not stressed out. And you guys do any breathing type practices? Because there's some really good breathing exercises for triggering vagal tonic and parasympathetic nervous system and relaxation. But they also have essential oils. And when you smell these essential oils and they're going through and triggering and sending messages to the nervous system, you have a physical effect going on in the body. I was just talking earlier about an oil that I was reading about that burns fat cells. How cool is that? How come everyone doesn't know about it?
Bring it on.
If we were all lab rats and we went into the lab, it would work, right? Because that's basically how the studies are done. But you can incorporate that and put it into real world situations. Now, if I ask you, the oil is grapefruit, how do you use it to burn fat? What do you think? I know my mother was on the grapefruit diet for a while, so she drank it.
Suppress appetite? Will it suppress your appetite?
Will it suppress the appetite? Yeah, I'll explain why. You smell it. So this is a physical response to the olfactory system. So what's happening, it's the molecule binds with the olfactory nerve endings, sends the olfactory bulb into the limbic system, and then it's channeled through a couple other areas of the brain, ends up in the nervous system, and then through that nervous system response, it's signaling to burn fat cells. That's what the study was reading. Through the olfactory system. So when we think about smell, don't just think emotions. Scent is a physical response as much as it is what we think of as emotion. So that is like the number one deal in my triad here. The next one, pharmacology. You guys have put peppermint on your skin and got a nice chill? Yeah? Why do you think that's happening? I guess I better tell you. You have receptors in your skin. So we communicate with our environment through our skin. And there's some in the epidermal layer and a bunch in the dermis. And when you put peppermint on your skin, it's a TRPV8, I think, receptor is what it's called, if you really want to name it. And when the menthol, which is like a key, fits on that receptor, which is like a lock, and it triggers a response, it triggers a cold sensation. That's what peppermint is doing. When you put CBD, I think the last time I was here, I was talking about CBDs, and cannabidiol, when you put that on your skin, it binds with the endocannabinoid system, which has a receptor there. I think it's CD1, CD2 is what it's called, if you really want to name these things. And it's triggering an anti-inflammatory effect. There's an oil called copaiba. Copaiba, it's always hard for me to say because I always want to go, Iba. But that's just me. That oil has a compound in it that they found binds to the endocannabinoid system, and through that, it's an anti-inflammatory. So a lot of people think that essential oils have to penetrate and get into the bloodstream. Oh, they're so magical, they go get on the skin and then they magically get into you, through all that epidermal layer and the lipid barrier and all that stuff, and gets into the capillaries, and within seconds you just feel so good. I once put, when I was very early on, this guy asked me, digestive, my stomach hurts. It's still early in my career, and I wasn't, didn't know too much. They told me put peppermint in the books, put some peppermint in. And he did. And within seconds, he's going, wow, that's really good. Yeah, it's got to be placebo. There's no way that it can penetrate through all that tissue and everything else. And, where's it going? It's going to the capillaries and then the blood, and then it's got to go through the heart, and then it's going to get to the gut. No. That pathway's way too long. There's got to be something else going on. And that's when I started doing the research and finding we communicate through our skin. Wound healing. There's olfactory nerves in your skin. In that process of putting on the oil, binding with the olfactory nerve endings, there's actually a wound healing property to it. And then the metaphysical, I don't know, works. But it's happening. I don't know, it's not something I work a lot with. Actually, I shouldn't say that because I've done this for so many years. I know I've worked with a lot of people having me do these kind of metaphysical blends. But I just, it's there. The energetics of the oil is there. So you're going to get a response. Now, if you want something specific, then you got to do a little bit of research and a little bit of experimentation. But here's what the triad is, okay? So energetic chi, prana, unknowns, that's kind of where I throw the metaphysical properties. Intention and verbal cues. I've been saying this a lot today, people over at the booth. What you say matters. What you say creates the results of what you're trying to do. Always pay attention to the words that you're using. And Sean mentioned this about words and speaking and what we say. It matters. So as a therapist, everything you say is part of the healing process. It's part of your therapy. They're not just words describing things. They are part of your therapy. Now, because essential oils are smaller molecules, they have kind of a different resonance than when you're, like thick molecules in skincare. That you're triggering a lot of different activity. So the intention part, which I'm going to say is metaphysical, is actually part of the olfactory response. And just as an example for that, in a study that they did, and I mentioned this a few times too, people at the booth, so maybe you hear this again, but the intention matters. So they brought some people into a room. Here's a calming oil. Smell it, it should calm you down, 100%. Brainwave readings, skin conductivity, people were calm. And then they wanted to try a stimulating oil, so they did a stimulating oil. It's stimulating, 100%. Brainwave readings, skin conductivity. Both oils were lavender. So does that mean lavender is just placebo? No. It means verbal cues can sometimes override therapeutic properties. So then in the limbic system, that's what I talk about, physical properties. So in the pharmacology, you do have physical properties because we're talking about receptor cells and molecules and triggering and molecular targets and all those things that go along. But what it all comes down to is holistic healing. So I've only got a few more minutes here, so let me just show you some oils. I think this is the first time anyone's been on my booth. I don't think I mentioned an oil, right? It's like, I'm not talking about essential oils, I'm talking about the philosophy of using skincare or essential oils in skincare. And so, helichrysum. Everyone know about helichrysum? You absolutely should know about helichrysum. Why should you know about helichrysum? Because it is one of the most effective cell regenerative essential oils in the market. And it's also one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory oils. And so for skincare, it's just phenomenal. So in the olfactory response, you're going to get a little, it's not like lavender when you think calming like lavender, but it does have a soothing effect, and this is physical as much as it is emotional, because you're soothing the central nervous system, which you're going to feel a little more calm. That's the easing nervous tension. Anti-inflammatory, promotes tissue regeneration, and then the metaphysical. I'm going to get into the chakras a little bit. It opens up your solar plexus, right? And so, how would you use this in skincare? Okay, well, obviously you want it for the regeneration, make the skin look really good, but you're also going to help a little bit on the emotional level, and then self-esteem. If low self-esteem is damaging to your skin. So if it's the solar plexus, which is all about self-esteem, that's a benefit for that oil. And then rose, the olfactory response. Rose does everything. This is one of the more emotionally uplifting essential oils, along with calming mental stress. The pharmacology, it's like what doesn't it do? I mean, it's amazing. It's also very powerfully cell regenerative, like helichrysum. And good anti-inflammatory, and all of these are antioxidants. So they're really good antioxidants for protection for the skin. And then rose is really well known for the heart chakra. So self-love, we talk about self-esteem, self-love. If you don't feel good about yourself, how good is your skin going to look, right? So these are important, and this is one oil doing all of this. The more you know about your oils, the more fine-tuned you can get with this. Cape chamomile is not the chamomile. When people say chamomile, what you're thinking, it's not that chamomile. It's an oil out of South Africa, which is absolutely one of my favorite essential oils. It behaves like Roman chamomile is the one most people are familiar with, even though it's only called chamomile. Has the same, and I think it might be even more effective for lowering nervous tensions and stress related to nervous tension. Fight or flight also will reduce all that. The pharmacology of it, it's an anti-inflammatory, really good anti-inflammatory, and it does have a little bit of cell regenerative properties, but it's really good for delicate or sensitive skin. And then metaphysically to intuition, it's one of those upper chakras, 6 and 7. And yeah, third eye is what I just mentioned. This is the oil that, did I mention it yet? Lowers fight or flight. I was talking about my booth, I haven't mentioned it here. But in my acneic blend, I put this oil in after I learned that the compound in its C-draw raises parasympathetic activity, which is what reduces fight or flight and actually gets us into that state that's going to be much healthier overall for your body. So that's the olfactory response. You smell it, and that's the reaction that you're going to get. The pharmacology, it's anti-inflammatory, strengthens skin, it's a good cell regenerative oil. And then metaphysically, this is when I look at trees, wood oils, right? So this is one of the ways that I will choose an oil. If I think somebody is not stable and not grounded, what better, symbol of strength and groundedness is a tree? Look at the stability they have. This is a chart that you can get this like on my website. If you got on LinkedIn, I'm putting lots of stuff on LinkedIn. And so this is a formula. I think I reposted this today actually on my LinkedIn post because I didn't feel like working this morning on that. And it goes through everything, Atlas cedarwood, Virginia cedarwood, helichrysum, all the different oils and how it works on each level of the triad. The triad is such a phenomenal thing. My book that I wrote is available as an ebook. You can get it, just the QR code over there. I'm actually doing a class, what am I calling it? Neurocosmetic, all these trendy names. Neurocosmetic aromatherapy. And I'm using the triad, and also my system I call the outside, inside out system, which we're all familiar with beauty inside out. I think that it's missing a step. If you don't pay attention to what's going on out here, you're going to be missing some really important factors. But it's not just what's going on out here, it's how people internalize information. And you can direct that using essential oils. Thank you. Oh, that's how to find me.